The Tudors Dynasty Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rebecca Larson, and today I am joined once again by our favorite guest slash co-host, Dr. Emma. Emma, welcome back.
Hi, Rebecca. Hi, everyone.
I did not have to pay her to come on the show today. This episode was her idea.
Yes, because it's snowing so much in Minnesota. We didn't have anything else to do, right, Rebecca?
Yeah, we have a snowstorm today, don't we?
Yay! Look at our smiley faces that are hiding our true feelings about the weather.
The disdain for snow and cold weather.
It's so pretty outside, but it's so intense too. So, one of those days.
I know. The worst part
So let's
is
talk about, things you do when it snows, like Christmas.
Well, to me, like snow on the ground, yeah, it means Christmas. It means sledding. It means ice skating, snowmen, snowball fights, snow angels.
You know why I like the snow so much? Because the ice is below the snow, so you're not slipping around anymore. I slipped the other day and fell taking my
Ooh.
trash out
Oh,
in the
Emma.
ice. I was like, oh, lovely. So now with the snow, it's like I know it's different, right?
Yeah.
Just people don't realize when you live somewhere so cold is like it's not always just like pretty and snowy. Sometimes it's just very cold and icy. I do like the snow. It's very pretty outside now. It's not slippery outside anymore. It's going to
Which
be
is
at
good.
least holiday season, I think.
And I think people who don't experience snow or live in a climate where it does snow, they don't understand that in order for it to snow, it does have to warm up a little bit. Like there is such a thing like it's too cold to snow.
Yes, yes, and oh, I can't believe I'm going to say this, Rebecca. What have you guys done to me? But sometimes when it's snowing, so it's cold, but you're like, no, it's not as cold as the other day when it was really cold and it wasn't snowing. So it's very pretty. The temperature's not that bad. I'm not gonna say it's not cold. It is cold, but it's the right temperature. My husband actually, who's from Minnesota and grew up with the snow, said it was a perfect day to ski.
Oh, yeah, I'd like to go skiing. I want to
I'm
get,
still a learner. I skied last year in Colorado. Was
oh,
it last
wow.
year? Yeah. And it's good. You just have to be fit and and kind of like be a bit brave because it can get a bit dangerous
Intense.
out there, especially in Colorado. You go from like no hills almost here in Minnesota to Colorado. They're like just this little mountain here, and it's like a huge Colorado mountain, right? And then when you're up there too, it's the difference in the heights and all that, and so your breath and it's you have to
Yeah.
adapt for sure.
Yeah, we don't have
It was an
mountains.
adventure and a half.
I can't. I've been skiing once in my life, and
Mhm.
that's when I lived here back home. And we have a place here called Powder Ridge, and
Yes, that's where we go.
yeah, it's like a very large hill.
Yes, yes.
It is not a
Very
mountain.
ideal for learners. And
Yes, yes.
I thought Powder Ridge was scary, but then I went to Colorado, and now Powder Ridge is just a joke.
It's like a bunny slope, right?
It is a bunny slope. The other problem with bunny slopes is a lot of very fast little skiers around bunny slopes. That's my other concern because I'm a big woman, so I'm scared of those kids out there. They should be, because I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know how to ski very well. If I have to like stay here my ground, I will.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're gonna have to go skiing sometime this winter, I think,
Yeah,
when
and
you're up this
skating.
way.
I like skating. I did a lot of
Yeah.
line skating when I was a kid. So not in ice, but just line skating, like the
Rollerblades?
rollerblades and the other ones that were in
Just
fashion in the 2000s, the straight line instead of like rollerblades. I don't know what they call those.
are we talking about
But
like the
with skating, I've done a lot of skating. So skating in the ice, but it's a bit scarier because you're on the ice, you slip, you can you know hurt your knees, your butt, whatever. But it's beautiful out there. It's beautiful out there skating sometimes.
it
You just have to be
is.
a bit brave and just embrace it a little bit.
I
Yeah.
thought I thought for very long. So I grew up on a farm, so we had plenty of ponds and places to ice skate on. And as a young girl and a teenager, I thought I was going to be like an Olympic figure skater.
And we do have from Minnesota, very lately there was one of the the ones in the Team USA. She was very good. Oh, she's the gymnastics person, right?
I don't
We
even.
have so many good athletes here in Minnesota, and a lot of winter sports. Like a lot of people doing ski, a lot of people doing those kind of more winter sports too. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no wonder it's
So
so cold here for such a long time.
what else
People
do
have
we
to
do?
get active and do something. You do burn more calories when it's up cold out there and you're doing some sort of sport. So
Yeah.
what did
Let's
I
get.
tell myself when I take my trash out? Double the steps.
I'm burning a lot of calories right now.
Right, right. It's not slippery anymore. I'm burning calories. Life is good.
Well, we're talking about winter, and we're talking
Yes.
about winter not only because it's winter right now, but because of our topic for today as well.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about New Year's gifts, aren't we?
We are, we're so used to, and at least in this American culture, which is very similar to the British culture in this sense, so used to gifts being brought by Santa Claus, Father Christmas, whatever we want to call this person who brings gifts to everyone for Christmas, and that happens between the 24th and 25th, and we just assume sometimes that has been always a norm, the case, and it's the same in every culture, and it's very different. First of all, Christmas is a Christian holiday. So, and then in the specific case of Father Christmas or Santa Claus, he hasn't been around for forever. So
Mhm.
originally, in the original story, we have the three wise men who are the ones to bring the gifts to the children, and they come on the 6th of January. That's when the Catholics, at least, celebrate the Epiphany, the feast of the three wise men visiting Christ. But it's also important to know that sometimes in other cultures, like in Tudor culture, gifts were given on the 1st of January, so at the beginning of the year, which is just the Christmas period because they're celebrated several days in Christmas. It seems like in America, at least, there's a lot of focus on Christmas Day and not so much on like New Year's and then the Epiphany, obviously. Whereas in other cultures, like for example in Spain, because people celebrate the Epiphany, that's when children get their gifts. Christmas is an extension, right? It starts in Christmas Eve, but it goes on till the 6th of January. We always like to extend our parties a little bit more in Spain.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so before we get too into this, and I hope you can answer this question because this is something that always confuses me.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Tudor times, January was not the beginning of the new year, it was in March.
Mm-hmm.
So was it really a New Year's gift that was given on January 1st? Did they call it something else?
At least in the sources that it's called New Year's gifts, and it's related to Christmas and the end of the year
Okay.
in terms of in relation to the birth of Christ and all these stories from the Bible. So really is the story between the Christ is born and then the three wise men visit, and then the Bible jumps until he's a kid, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like the story of how Jesus is born. So this is all part of the same story. And that's why in the Tudor court they celebrate several days, 12 days of Christmas. And it's changed a bit in our society because we preparate so much for Christmas.
Mhm.
We have Mariah Carey coming out and sing for us and after Thanksgiving, and that's it. We're in Christmas time. So a lot of people I think are tired by the end of the 25th of December. They're like, okay, Christmas is done.
Yeah.
As a Spaniard, that's something that strikes me to see like Christmas trees on the 26th on outside of people's alleys because in Spain at least Christmas is goes on until the 6th of January and goes on strong. Especially New Year's too. It's a big party.
Yeah. We do it a little different nowadays here, don't we?
Yes, yes, yes. There's some New Year's parties and that, and people get together. At least in Spain, there's a big celebration. People get together with their families. There's a tradition to eat grapes, 12 grapes before the end of the year, 12 grapes before the year ends.
Really?
Yep. And everybody does it at the same time because in Madrid, we have a clock that tells us when we have to do this because it's the last 12 seconds of the year. So we live, and then people go out to party all night, and they do a lot of the times in Spain. It's a big party. And then on the
Oh.
6th of January is when everybody receives the gifts from the three wise men. Everybody has their favorite, and that's when the kids get their gifts too. So it's and then everybody gets together again with the family and has the last big meal before the end of Christmas. That's our
Oh.
end of Christmas.
Wow. Well, now I have
Yeah.
to ask, I'm spending New Year's with you this year. Are we going to eat
Yeah.
12? Are we going to eat 12 grapes?
If we can find some grapes, I'm sure we will. That's the thing, right? You just have to prepare a little bit. But yes, of course, we'll eat 12 grapes. And do we do it in the Spanish time or in the Minnesotan time? That would be do
Yeah.
we do it with the people in Spain? That's the thing. I start celebrating very early on New Year. That's me because, everybody from Spain is already saying Happy New Year. And you're like, it's the afternoon here.
Yeah. Yeah. We still have 6 hours or so to go
7
before.
hours to go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
big countdown for me, at least.
Sounds like one heck of a party, Emma.
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay. So back to New Year's gifts.
Yeah. 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 So that was a time. Then, for example, let's talk about Henry VII and then Elizabeth of York and Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon and then Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn and then Henry VIII and his other wives, because we know he had a few.
Yeah.
And not only that time, Edward, Mary, and Elizabeth. We have lists of gifts so this was a very public performance too. And it was not just a Christmas gift, it was a sign of privilege, of closeness to of the monarch expressing who he had in favor at the time, right?
Mhm.
And the lists are very significant. And when you pick the certain years, you see the changes and drastic changes. I brought examples from different times, and especially I think a very, very important one, 1534. We can talk about what was gifted in 1534.
Oh, I can't wait to find out.
Yeah. Let's say that they were reusing somebody's things to make new things for a new queen.
Oh, imagine that.
Imagine that.
I
Take
think
off those that coat of arms of Spain. Let's put a coat of arms of England. You kind
wow.
of thing. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
how did the gifts change from the reign of Henry VII to the reign of Henry VIII? Were they similar, or did they become more extravagant? How did they change over time?
I have studied more in the reign of Henry VIII, and they're very lavish. I think I've paid more attention to how there is, for example, a big change from the reign of Henry VIII to the reign of Mary,
Hmm.
for example, because in that case, Mary's receives a lot of paintings in one year. So that's telling me that she has an interest in that. People know that, and that's why they're gifting her that. She values that over, a dish or something else. So, and paintings were cheap to produce, very difficult to achieve because, technically, but the materials were not expensive. That's what I mean. It's not like, you know, getting some gold and doing something with gold, a cup or whatever. But it seems like Mary had an appreciation for things like paintings because, for example, Levina Turnlick, uh, a woman painter from Flanders that Mary probably brought to England, she gifted her a little painting in 1557. So um, the courtiers would give the best things they could produce to impress the monarch, and the monarch would show royal favor by gifting them things back. And there's absences, and there's important absences in years. For example, in the year 1534, there's two queens cited.
Hmm.
There's Queen Catherine cited, and she doesn't receive anything from Henry. And then there's Queen Anne cited, but she's also cited again later on saying, Lady Anne, now Queen. So there's a transition there. And there's a lot of people that receive gifts for the first time that year that have been in Catherine's service. So what are they doing? Anne and Henry are showing favor to those people, basically telling them in public, you're now working for us because we're showing you our royal favor, right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise, what would happen to you? In 1534, Thomas More was already arrested. You know.
Right. Yeah.
So
Bishop
maybe it
Fisher.
was a fun time sometimes and not so much fun other times. Imagine you're like a Catherine Aragon, you're like Susanna Horenboot, who was a Catherine Aragon lady, and you receive a gift from the Queen, from the new Queen, and the King in public. What are you going to do? Say no?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
They're forcing you, really, to accept, which is normal. It's that's what kings do. That's what kings do in their prerogative. That's the king's favor is, it's a forced one sometimes. It's not always something you want. You can ask again Thomas more about that.
Yeah, right. Can you tell us any of the gifts that Catherine of Aragon gave when she was queen?
So I want to talk about the year 1511. That's the
Oh,
first one I have. 1511, let's just talk about what's going on, right? So on the 1st of January 1511, Catherine of Aragon gives birth to a baby boy, alive. He's baptized, and he's
yeah.
named after his father, Henry, right? He's made Duke of Cornwall, and there's a lot of things that are produced in the cultural and artistic mediums because of this birth, like the Westminster Tournament Roll, where we have the first depiction of a Black person on record in English art. John Blank, for example, a Black trumpeter that most probably came with Catherine of Aragon, things like that. So Catherine has decided that Margaret of Austria is going to be godmother to this little prince. So she sends a message to her in French saying, I have decided you'll be the godmother. And Margaret is so delighted that she sends over no other than Pietro Torrigiano, for example.
Oh.
Well, so in the list of things that Henry VIII gets that year from the gifts that he gets, that Henry gets, there is an image of Hercules made of earth. If it's made of earth, it's made of terracotta. That means this is Pietro Torrigiano. And it's a Hercules because they were trying to convince Henry that he was man enough to go and fight in the continent, as he did 2 years later. Remember, with Maximilian in 1513. So Margaret and Catherine are telling Henry, you're just like Hercules. So they have Torrigiano make this Hercules, probably with Henry's face. See how you're so brave? You're just like Hercules. He identified with Hercules. When he captures Terouanne and Tournai, Margaret of Austria gives him a set of tapestries with the story of Hercules. They're telling him who he needs to look like, who he needs to model himself after, right? And Henry VIII models himself after Hercules many times after that. So that's one of the gifts, for example. Why do I know it's Pietro Torrigiano? Because nothing is made with earth prior to this in England. This is a new medium. This is a new way to create art. And think about it as a sculpture of a Hercules. This is Renaissance. This is going back to those ideas of antiquity, of these heroes from antiquity, Alexander the Great, Hercules, all these role models the men could use, and the men were using, like Charles V was using too. And these ladies telling them, oh, look at this one. This one's really good for you. You should be Hercules because he was really strong and this and that, right?
Yeah.
So it's the marketing mothers, Margaret of Austria and Catherine of Aragon, 1511.
I love it how they're stroking his ego. They're look how strong and powerful you are, Henry.
Yes,
you can do this. And he's like, tell me more.
Well, and then and look, for example, messages with for the Queen, and then there's a mention to the guys that bring Torrigiano to England, to the Italian merchants that help. But there's also gunpowder that's arriving from Spain. Like they're preparing for this ultimate war they're gonna fight in France against the French king. So they're trying to make Henry realize that he's gonna have to man up.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a statue of Hercules with your face. Here's Torrigiano who broke Michelangelo's nose. Right? Because he brings this to him and he stays there and he starts to carve the most outstanding tombs ever created in England, the tombs of Henry VII and Elizabeth. They're basically making Henry realize that he's this powerful king. They're making him this powerful king, but he needs to step up and live up to the standard. So that's what he's getting in 1511. No pressure, Henry. The
No.
baby dies, right? The baby dies. The baby boy dies.
Yeah, you only
Um,
lived what, 52 days?
he lived, yep, but he lived. And look what happened in the short amount of time he lived. Imagine what Henry the Ninth would have supposed, um, and imagine, for example, Torrigiano would have stayed and not have probably a fallout with Henry the Eighth because he was designing later the tomb of Henry the Eighth and Catherine of Aragon too, where they would have been buried with Mary, and it would have looked a lot like the tombs of Charles V and Philip II, probably in El Escorial now in Spain, right? So this is what Catherine is bringing to the table. But Torrigiano and Henry VIII were basically the same person.
Basically.
Basically the same guy, just different roles in life, and probably had a fallout. And especially after Evil May Day, which was a day, it was a series of incidents between the English craftsmen, and the foreign artisans. And then a lot of these high Renaissance early artists that arrive with Catherine of Aragon have to leave. The English artisans are not very happy with these very, very talented foreigners having all the royal favor for them.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, get out of here. This is
Get
our
out of
turf.
here, you Torrigiano guys. So that's 1511. Then, there's other examples. For example, we've talked about 1534
Mhm.
because it's a crucial year. It's the year that Anne Boleyn is crowned. It's mentioned in the New Year's lists. And for example, the first the first gift that is cited is the gift sent by the queen to the king. So the importance of that, right? By the new queen, by Anne, right? And it's a fountain, so it's probably made by someone like Holbein, right? This is the
Oh,
could be that design that Holbein did. Actually, I was reading something very interesting about this. I was reading that Erasmus criticized Holbein once for changing alliances, right? So I mean, who can blame Holbein or the Hornboots or anyone for not wanting to lose their heads, like Thomas More or any like the other 100 people that lost their heads just for supporting Catherine, right? Like
yeah.
Mary's Latin instructor and all these guys. Sir Henry Guilford, fun guy.
Fun
His name,
guy.
yay, fun guy. It's his last time. It's his last time. He's about to have a very big fight. So it's not, and then it's very, very interesting that there's no gifts to the Queen or Princess Mary sent by the King.
I mean, interesting, but also almost not surprising.
Well, no, because he has a new wife, a new queen. He can't send gifts to his. How could you do that? I mean,
Send it
but
to your
imagine the
ex-wife.
tension because she does send. So this is the year that Catherine sends a gift to Henry, as she does every year. She never failed until she was prohibited to do so, and she sends a cup to him, right? And she manages to get this cup in front of him, in front of everybody. So then he can't refuse it. He has to refuse it. So he says, no, I don't want this. But then he says, bring that back. I want to have a closer look because it was so amazing that he admired the craftsmanship of this cup. But finally, he had to reject it and say, don't send more things to me. Stop making my shirts, woman, and things like that. Anne Boleyn is very, very angry because you keep appearing in my life. You
Right.
know,
My
she's
new
like,
wife.
I'm just your lawful wife.
What a complicated time. I mean, Anne
Henry must
Boleyn.
have been so nervous around these times. Imagine that. Because then I mean, I'm sure Anne wasn't happy about this either, right?
Right, right.
And then they take away all the plates and all the jewels and everything that Catherine and Mary have and give it to Anne and then transform those pieces to have her initials, so imagine for example, all those pieces from the dowry that Catherine brought that were transformed for Anne of Cleves, because it was gold, it was gems, it was jewels, it was all of these things, right? So, I mean, there's a continuous transformation, and Christmas time is a period. They mention the goldsmiths that are doing this and things that are doing, changing the cardinal's arms to the top of a cover, the cardinal's arms, Wolsey's arms. So, and for example, and this is something I think art historians need to reflect on. When we look at the inventory of the goods of Henry VIII after his death, this is not Henry VIII's collection on his own. This is things that he appropriated. These are things that he stole from other people, that he inherited, that he bought, that he commissioned. But a lot of things he took away. So it's important to know that, because it's important to know this is the birth of the royal collection as we know it, really, especially in important mediums in the Renaissance, like paintings, right? A lot of paintings in the royal collection date from this time. Well, if it was Catherine who brought these paintings to England, it's important to know. It's important to give her credit for that. And if she was deprived of everything, it's important to know that she did have a role. It's just that because of this downfall, everything's now appears somewhere else, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Maybe for us, maybe for other people, it doesn't.
So 1534, Henry's in a
Right.
tough situation.
Right.
He's got his
Yeah.
ex-wife sending him gifts. His
Yeah.
new wife is upset that she's
Sending
sending
him
gifts.
even better gifts because now she has the money, right? So, but they're fighting because they both send him a cup. So a cup or and Henry really admires the one that Catherine has sent him. This is very similar to when Anne finds out that Catherine is still making Henry his shirts and she can't handle it because this is important. It's a competition to see who is the most fashionable queen. And I'm afraid to say it was Catherine.
You're not afraid to say it. You were proud to say it.
I am kind of proud to say it, very proud to say it indeed. I think Anne was a very good pupil, but I think that just the years and years of seeing this in Spain as a kid, being exposed to this magnificent, to your mother dressed in cloth of gold every day, wearing these jewels, having these painters, and then coming to England and you starting this on your own with Henry, nobody can take away that from you in 6 years or 5 years, or especially not someone who's 15 years younger than you. You just have a way to yourself that is like, okay, whatever, but everybody knows because look at this, right?
Yeah.
Because she had been a successful regent. She had done these things for England. She was very, very beloved. And that is something you can't take away that easily.
No.
Even if you transform all the jewels and you leave her with, it's even, sometimes in some cases, even worse. Because you're making her a martyr. You're making her a martyr of a cause, right?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
I think that Henry there erred he didn't realize that his first wife was such a stubborn lady. At first, he didn't think so. He met his match.
You would think from the beginning he should have had an idea of who Catherine was.
But she was a very sweet person too, so you wouldn't. I think he didn't expect her to be just like no, 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 never, ever, ever, ever.
She just
and in some ways and respects, I think after Anne was executed, he kind of went back to that idea of that. You know, that wasn't such a bad thing when a queen is just quiet but doing a lot of good things in the background and supporting you quietly, you know, like Catherine Parr did, for example, for him again, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you think that's something, but I definitely think it in those terms, you know. Then he had a few other Catherines too. It's just weird.
It is a little weird, isn't it? Made it easy for him in the bedroom.
Yeah. Oh, Rebecca.
I'm sorry. I had to go there. I know I'm not the only one.
By the sixth wife, I don't think he was, you know.
It was just wife. Hey, wife.
This is just my opinion as a woman, not as an art historian.
Okay, I'm sorry. I went there. Are we ready to move?
We're talking about the holidays. Come on.
Are we ready to move past 1534, or do you have more?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so let's think and recap. 1534, Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn are giving these very elaborate gilt cups to Henry that designed already by someone like Holbein or Hornboots already. So they're all already immersed in the Renaissance, but they're gifting these really, really expensive gifts that basically you can also like, change and then put it and right. But we jump to Mary the First and Philip of Habsburg's reign, and there's a change in what is given to the Queen, at least. And to me, this is telling me that she has an interest in this, and people know, and that's why people are gifting her things like this. And they give her quite a few items that are paintings, but also listen to this: a lute. Do you know what a lute is? To
Yeah, it's
play a
like
lute? Yeah.
little
Yep.
guitar thingy.
Yeah, yeah. And she was very good with this. She played this very well in a case. So, you have to take it somewhere and you're going to play. Mary Tudor was a very good musician, covered with black silk and gold. Not bad, with two little round black tables. The one of the physiognomy of the emperor and the king's majesty, the other of the king of Bohemia and his wife.
Interesting.
Isn't this just wonderful? I want to see that. I can see it in my brain.
Do you see me? I'm just like processing this in my head right now.
So it's a lute in a case. So it's an instrument in a case, and the case has two little round tables with pictures of the emperor and the king's majesty. Who's the emperor and the king's majesty? The emperor is Ferdinand.
Yes.
And the king's majesty, because Charles V has just died the previous year.
Okay.
And then the king's majesty is Philip.
Yeah. Okay.
And the other, the king of Bohemia. So this is the Habsburgs. These are Habsburgs in these pictures. So three men and one woman. The king of Bohemia is, so this must be one of the last pictures of Charles V that arrives. Charles V, Philip II, Ferdinand I, and his wife, because he's the king of Bohemia. So this is what she receives, Mary.
Wow.
Yep. She also receives Parson Lewin gives her a table with the Passion embroidered. I have an impression that these things that are embroidered and painted come from the same designs and the same patterns. So they're using drawings to make these, because in Catherine of Aragon's inventories, things that are embroidered and painted are together. So to me, it's telling me they're probably, the process is not that, we tend to separate them now. And one is like great art that goes in a museum and the other one is not. But I think at the time it was a bit different,
Can you explain when you say table? In this respect, do you mean like the table we eat at, or do you mean something else?
No, that's very, very good to clarify that. A table is basically a piece of wood that's been prepared and painted on, and could have a painting of some sort. The Passion is a scene, is a religious scene where the Passion of Christ, right? It's a wooden table where it's been painted the Passion of Christ. That's this guy called Parson Lewin. But it's not painted, it's embroidered. What I was saying, the design was probably the same design that someone would have used for a painting, because I think these embroidered works are very similar, have a very similar design process that the painted works. I don't know if I explained myself better now. Lavina Turlick, a woman artist. So this is that Mary has probably helped to bring, like I talked about at the beginning, gave a small picture of the Trinity. The Trinity is the Father, the Son,
and the Holy Spirit.
Right. A little picture. She was she was good at doing miniatures, the limning. She's probably trained Nicholas Hilliard. She's an extremely important artist that doesn't get the credit that she deserves. She made more money than than men did, and yet Holbein has extensive bibliography, and Lavina is still like, there's some works, Susan James and others, but Melanie Taylor works obviously in Lavina, but there needs to be so much more. And for example, Henry Mink's wife, listen to this, pomegranates, oranges, lemons, and a table of the king's picture in it.
Interesting. Pomegranates, huh?
Huh? Lemons. Lemons with an A, lemons. Oranges. I love it. And a table of the king's picture in it. This is Philip II. So Henry Mink's wife. This is an English painter painting Philip, who's already Philip II of Spain, also, as well as King of England. And John Soda, 6 boxes of marmalade, because that was her apothecary.
Okay.
Conservas, 2 pots of conservas. Dr. Owen, Dr. Wendy, and Dr. Hudgens. Conservas are sardines or something like that.
Oh.
Yep. And another table painted with a Mondi and a picture. There's so many. A box with a picture of Christ. A table painted of the woman of Samaria. See? Then a table with a picture of Christ and his mother.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so a lot of paintings.
A lot of paintings. A painter, a table of the Queen's Majesty's marriage.
Oh.
And listen to this. Jacob Ragoson, an Italian, a fair chair of ebonite covered with crimson bellet and fringed with Cinca gold, a carpet of Turkey making, a basket of silver, and 10 cases of silver and needles in them.
Wow.
Wonderful gifts, because she had all these artists that came with Philip, Italians, Jacopo da Trezzo, who made the portrait medals of Mary and Philip. There are now, for example, in the Prado in the British Museum and in other places, portrait medals are these propaganda tools, right? Big coins with the faces of these monarchs. And that's something that Mary makes popular in England. And this Italian artist, Jacopo da Trezzo, who's doing these portrait medals, is using the same model as the Antonis More's portrait of Mary painted in 1554 in London by, probably sent by Mary of Hungary. Chan, chan, chan. Not Charles V, not Philip, probably Mary of Hungary, who was the one to receive Holbein when he painted Catherine's niece, potentially to marry Henry VIII, right? She's in the National Gallery in London, Christina.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting how different the gift giving was to Henry VIII versus his daughter when she was Queen Regnant.
Listen to this. You're going to love this. There's a mention, Erasmus once mentioned that Mary of Hungary is interested in becoming friends with the daughters of Thomas More and has sent pictures, and they're exchanging little pictures and this and that. So Mary of Hungary, who's the governor of the Netherlands, and we've talked a lot about Margaret of Austria, but Mary of Hungary is a successor, her niece too. She's one of them. She's the most outstanding Renaissance patron, period. Let's just leave that there. And she has a lot to do with what's happening in England. So, for example, she lends portrait painters to Edward VI, a portrait painter, things like this. She is actively trying to help Mary's cause one way or another from the Netherlands that we talk every time is so close by. And Antwerp is a place where all these luxury items from the Netherlands are coming from. And when Mary and Philip are married, it gets reactivated, like at the times of Catherine of Aragon. So that's why there's all these, and now it's a different time. It's the mid 16th century. They're more interested in representing that power in pictures, because it's become the fashion, and it's the fashion in the Spanish monarchy. So Philip brings that, but it's not just Philip. It's with Mary. Mary knows this from childhood. Her mother had pictures of her painted since she was a little girl. We know that now, right?
Yeah.
Isn't this just so interesting how Mary is at the center of this revolution and how people represent themselves, right? Royalty especially. And she's the first ruling queen of England. We have so many, well, we should ask Dr. Peter Estefel about this. So many images of Mary, so many. It's incredible. I from going to studying her mother, that you barely even know her face sometimes, to Mary, is just incredible. This is because there's a propaganda machinery behind this that she's activated when she becomes queen. She's very smart to do this too.
I love this. I love that she was gifted so many paintings as well. I want to know, like, what did she do with all these? Did she have a room where she just had them set out?
Oh, Rebecca, this is why I love you. You ask the best questions. So, the largest painting collection that Henry VIII amassed by commissioning, inheriting, stealing, appropriating was held in Whitehall Palace. In 1544, he has a whole new building created for Mary that's connected to where these all these pictures that he had amassed with Catherine of Aragon. And basically from 1542 that we have the first inventory of Whitehall to Henry's death, those paintings don't change very much. That means that he's amassed all that while he was married to Catherine. Mary inherits all of that. In 1544, Mary's already coming back to the court. She's accepted back in this. She has commissioned a portrait of herself that survives in the National Portrait Gallery, painted by Susanna Harnbut, most probably, in collaboration with either her husband or someone else called John. And this is why I'm saying that these embroidery items and these paintings come from the same places. They come from designs, from these pictures, like the drawings that we know of Holbein, right?
Mm-hmm.
They come from here. So Mary really is at the center of this when Holbein comes back, and there is a revolution. And we talked about this many times. We talked especially about this with Alejandra Vergara in that episode about the quality in art, how we make an emotional connection to the Tudors because of Holbein's pictures, right?
Yeah.
This book that is the revolution and why we're so connected, and that is that was found by Queen Caroline in the 18th century, I think it was, in Kensington Palace. This most probably belonged to Mary Tudor. Mary Tudor was the one, future Mary I, was the one who had an interest in this, because it was the women that were mostly in charge of creating these pictures, these portraits, and exchanging them. So I'm not saying Henry didn't play a role. What I'm saying is this was pictures of people were something that women, usually queens, exchanged. Mary is just becoming that person who's going to help her brother Edward become this is what Henry wants. He wants Mary to help Edward become an international king again. And Mary's like, great, I'm back in the succession. And I don't think, for all that they say, Mary did come back and was with her father. He created a whole place for her. They were in good terms. So no wonder she got to activate her networks again and all that. By the time she becomes queen, she's taking matters into her own. And then it's just, there's an open policy with Antwerp and with all the Catholic places again. And Philip is King of England, and he's there. So he's bringing all his artists with him too. This is why we see that change from more like Gothic-y items to paintings and all these types of Renaissance items that are more linked to the artistry behind them, that the value of what they're made of, like gold or, gilt or whatever, silver and gold or whatever it's made of, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So
it was just not just an exchange of gifts. It was a way to see what was in fashion, because the monarch would react. Imagine you brought a painting to the monarch and he was like, are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like this. Or the other way around. I've talked about this before. In 1520, there was a woman in Calais that gave a portrait to Charles V, and he gave her a gold chain in return. Well, this was a way, and Charles V did this with Titian years later. This was a way to say, I am in awe of your art and your artistry. I am giving you this chain, and everybody now is going to know that you work for me, that I made you of the nobility because you have this skill. So it's not just a birthright now. You can acquire nobility. It's a change, you see, in the mindset too. It's the birth of the modern era. And arguably the first artist to receive this, it was a woman, because it's 1520. We don't have, at least as far as I know, previous evidence of, especially not Charles V, who became emperor in 1519, and he's gifting this chain in 1520 to Susanna Horenboot.
Hmm.
Mm.
Interesting. And when you say chain, we're talking about those like big chains that they
Yeah, one
used to
of those
wear.
big chains that you would, and for example, Rubens painted himself wearing this chain, Titian. So if you want to go and Google Titian chain, portrait chain, or Rubens self portrait with chain, you will see. Artemisia Gentileschi, there's one in the Royal Collection Trust, and she's wearing this chain and she's represented herself as the allegory of painting because it's an allegory inside an allegory. She's wearing this chain as recognition to her skill while she's representing herself as painting herself because of the liberal arts were considered to be women.
Hmm.
You can see them, for example, in the sculptures in the main gallery in the Prado Museum with the portrait of Christina of Sweden. They are the representations of the muses that was part of her sculpture collection. Those are all women because the muses, music and all these were women,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
Artemisa Gentileschi, for example, represented herself working for Queen Henrietta Maria of England, really. So this is back to going to England. Painted herself as the allegory of painting with a chain. So these chains, anyone who would see you with a chain and a brush knew that you were a big deal, that you were an artist that some king, some emperor had recognized. And they would recognize the chain. They would recognize, oh, it's an imperial chain. So she's got the favor of Charles V. Imagine Susanna Horenboot wearing that in London.
Just walking around.
Just walking around London. Yep, that's me.
I'll check out my chain.
Pick up my chain with a strong Fleming accent and just being like, oh, what a sight.
Amazing.
Or on the day of New Year's, right? You would put your chain on the important days. You like you blings, right? We do
Yeah.
that. I do that. I certainly do that, right?
Well,
Bring out the blings.
here's my next question for you. Now you're bringing up these artists and we're talking about New Year's gifts. Do we have records of any of the New Year's gifts that artists gave to Henry or any of the other monarchs or
Yes,
queens?
so we talked about Lavina Turnley giving Mary the picture of the Trinity.
Yeah.
Lavina Turnley gave many, many, many pictures to Elizabeth I. So even the year she dies, she gives her a picture.
Wow.
The year Lavina dies, she that year she's painted a picture for Elizabeth, so Elizabeth maintains that artist from the time of Mary. For all that we say that she broke with everything that Mary ever did, that's not true. Well, and not everybody says that because people like Peter Stifel is like, no, she continued a lot of what her sister did. One of the things was having Lavina as a portrait painter. So Lavina Turnley painted Elizabeth I many times. Imagine what kind of relationship they developed, right?
Yeah.
That for to start thinking about that. Let's think about the Hercules made of earth in 1511. So was that a gift from Margaret of Austria? Yeah, but if Torrigiano brought it, it's not just gifting the statue; it's gifting the artist. Here you are. Look what he made. Now it can work for you. That's what. For example, Master Antonio, the portrait painter that painted Catherine as a baby, that went to Spain from England. That's the same thing. He brought pictures of the Tudors, but he also brought himself to work for the Queen for a year. This is what usually artists did. So Henry and Catherine were thirsty for this, and the Netherlands were not far away. Torrigiano going there didn't mean that he had to stay in England forever. In fact, he goes to Italy on behalf of Henry and Catherine to try and find other people to work for Catherine and Henry. And Cellini, who's a very famous Renaissance Italian artist, says in his biography, I said, no, I'm horrified. How could I go to that barbaric land? Cellini's words, sorry, not mine, about England and the English, not mine. But he said, how could I do that when he had broken Michelangelo's nose? Because, they were obsessed with this. But he does manage, Torrigiano does manage to take other artists too. So this is all what it involves. So magnificence, I would say, is at the core of this. So the artists are producing the magnificent that Henry wants. So these, for example, and not just, I talk a lot about paintings, but there's prayer books,
Mm.
illuminated prayer books. There is, and then there's things that people bring to you because it's what they do, right? So the guy who is your apothecary brings you marmalade or just regular gifts that you would do. Are these people, some of these considered artisans or not? For example, I find a lot of women that weave silk and work silk. To me, these are artists. We just don't know their names and they're not as visible. It's because we have placed a lot of importance on paintings and Holbein and
Yeah.
this and that, right? But there was a lot of art artistic people. Imagine the Brown instrument maker, a fair lute for Mary. So lots of musical. Mary was very musical, like her father, Henry VIII, but also like Catherine. They say, oh, Henry was this great musician. So was Catherine of Aragon.
Right. Where'd she get it from? Her mother and her father.
Well, and that kind of like courtly life that humanism brought. They would read while someone was playing, while someone was, it was a kind of they were basing their education on what the ancients had told us was good for education. So music, rhetoric, this, that, the other things that, and I'm not saying it was very different from the medieval period because people in the elites usually did this. In the case of Catherine and this, I see a lot of also things to do with religion because above all, this is a religious feast. So it's things to remind. So if you gift a picture to the queen and she loves it and she prays it every day, don't you think she's going to favor you and bring you back and give you a salary and put you, this is why they're doing it. So there's a lot of painters when Mary and Philip, a lot of painters lurking around Mary because they know she likes paintings. You only have to see that Antoinette Small portrait to realize that she had so much agency in that.
Yeah.
It's just such a powerful, it's not like other portraits of women by Antoinette Small. This one is saying, I am in charge.
Yeah,
sure.
It definitely does.
Yeah. She was in charge and Philip knew. That's why he's like, I'll be back soon.
I'll be back. Out of curiosity, we've talked about paintings, we've talked about gilded cups, we've talked about marmalade and all of these other things. This is just one of these weird Rebecca questions that I'm going to throw at you now.
My favorite.
Did anybody gift a monarch or a consort livestock? Deer,
yes.
cows, I don't know.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, dead livestock to feast.
Okay.
But a monkey. I saw a monkey. 1534. Somebody was being cheeky, gifting the king and queen a monkey. A marmoset. Not any monkey, a monkey from America. So,
interesting. Who gifted that?
Let me see. Maybe I shouldn't tell. I just put it in my book.
I know. I love that. I feel like it was like Catherine of Aragon in disguise.
Of course. We all know that.
She was like, I'm going to send this. I'm going to say it's from somebody else.
Well, who gives? Well, in this case, it doesn't say exactly, but the monkey is there. He's just before two serviettes and a tablet of gold with a device of Venus and Cupido.
Oh.
So Venus and Cupid.
And a monkey.
That's Catherine. I think she did very cheeky things like that with hidden messages that were not hidden because, I mean, if Anne Boleyn hates monkeys and you're sending a monkey there. I just read the other day, some little kid in the 17th century, some little princess was gifted a monkey and the monkey scratched her and the monkey was thrown out the window. Oh. I mean, these things were vicious. That's because they're wild animals. They're not supposed to, and you take them, to the middle of a court and maybe they behave well, maybe they don't. And I'm kind of scared of, the monkeys are crazy. I don't know if you've seen live monkeys, but they can get scary. So I get this, but it's just funny,
I love that.
And they would just send a monkey there on 1534. Happy New Year.
Well, we've covered a lot. We're at almost an hour mark now, but
Yeah.
I want to make sure that you've covered everything that you found that you've wanted.
I
Is
think
there
the
anything?
monkey was the last thing I was oh, there's another table of Hercules in 1534.
Oh,
So
later.
Henry was still identifying with Hercules, even though he didn't look anything like Hercules anymore. In
Not at all.
1511, he did. Maybe this is what really, really stung, for Henry. Like, was this Hercules looking like him in 1534? Because he didn't look like in 1511. You know what I mean?
Right.
We've all seen the Hornbook miniatures where, you're like, okay, Henry, maybe and it's okay. It's normal. He's middle aged. He's not a 17-year-old anymore. But now I'm thinking, was this Hercules still a young Hercules? Like for example, Elizabeth does the Mask of Youth, and she's always eternally young. I think Henry was eternally slim in all this.
I think so too. Like
Yes,
that
you think so?
that's the
Because
image he
otherwise he
wanted.
would go crazy. Imagine they showed him an actual statue of him in the last year of his life, just thrown in a.
I mean, would any of us want that? Like when we're at our physical worst, would we want that to be the image that
If you're Henry's
remains?
enemy, maybe.
If it were up to me, every image that I would have out there would be like what I look like in my 20s.
This is the gift from the emperor. And it's just a statue of Henry just thrown in the floor. No, it's a statue of Henry defeated by Francis I in the Feudal Court of Gold. Can you imagine
Mm,
that? That would be my
wow.
gift for the Henry VIII this year. Would be that. I would have Pietro carve it for me. Make it of terracotta. Just the point where Henry's falling to the floor, please.
Right.
That's where, yeah.
Or it's like Francis pinning him down. So it's
Yeah,
Henry on his
make
back.
Francis's nose extremely big, please.
Here we go with the nose again. Oh, poor Francis. I wonder how
Poor
big his.
Francis.
Okay, not poor Francis. I mean, he did get syphilis and stuff, didn't he? So
Well,
he
I
got
don't even
it.
want to think about
He got
Francis.
everything that was coming to him, I guess.
I think I've read Henry too, It's just, that's what happened. They
Yeah.
were, yeah, they were in an endless party, so there's consequences to that too. That's the thing about piety, right? And queens being moderate, and they, I mean, they usually died in childbirth, but if not, they had a reasonable. Catherine Aragon never. I mean, she hated the taste of ale, for example. Some things I can't relate to her really, but others. So yeah, imagine that. Imagine like the last Christmases of Henry VIII too. Like people just trying to please him and bringing these new gifts and things, and he just like probably just quite sad, right? Because he's quite sick in the last years of his life, isn't he?
Yeah, he definitely is.
Yeah. But I
Wow.
think Mary was doing a good job there. I think Catherine Parr was, doing a good job, and I think they were truly trying to shape Edward to be, but it just he becomes king very, very young, and then there's too many interests in there. And I will say this a million times: he's just a little boy, really, when he becomes king. So we can't really like put everything on him. Did he make
Right.
choices? Sure, but was he just a child? That too, right?
Yeah.
Mary was a full grown 30-year-old woman.
Yeah. Who had seen
So,
things.
oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, I love
He
this.
did not receive a gift on 1534, though. No gifts for Mary on Christmas of 1534 from anyone.
That's sad.
Prohibited. Yeah. 1534, 35, 36. And then she recants, and then, then she's fine. But,
Wow.
yeah.
Her punishment. No gifts. No gifts for you.
Yeah. Well, but then she gets all these paintings of her and Philip and everything. I mean, if that's what I always think, if Mary and Philip would have had 10 extra years, well, I mean, the Christmases would have just gotten better and better because more and more artists would have come. It's just like that effect, right? That two powerful people would have
Yeah.
like that, especially if they had a child, a
Oh,
boy.
for sure. Yeah. Well, Emma, this has been so fun because every time I have you on, I learn so much. And the New Year's gifts, I think, is fascinating. And it's a topic that um, aligns with the show airing
Yeah.
today. So I think
Any New Year's resolutions, Rebecca, on your end?
well, you're
You
putting me
ever
on
do
the
those?
spot.
Ha ha
I
ha ha.
try to, but I think I'm going to make it very similar to the New Year's resolution for 2024 was just to say yes to new opportunities and adventures and
Oh, nice.
just to be happy in 2024.
Well, I kind of like that. Can I tag along a little bit for that one?
Of course you can. Is that going to be your
Yeah.
only one?
No, no. That is a very good one, and I won't be greedy, so I'll just ask for one more thing. I think, we said 2024 was going to be the year of Catherine Aragon, and I
Yeah.
think it has been. And not just
It,
Catherine Aragon, like the people she empowered, Fungi, Susanna Hornboot, Hans Holbein, all these people. I think 2025 is going to be Mary Tudor's year. Not only I have, I'm going to publish that book that's going to have wonderful chapters by different scholars on her artistic patronage, but I really think the tide is turning on Bloody Mary, and she's not going to be known as Bloody Mary anymore, and she is going to be given her place and then we'll have to reflect on the way she's been treated for all these centuries and all the things we know now about her and how she was an amazing queen, really. So
yeah, I love
that's
that.
my resolution.
I love that. Well, Dr. Emma, thanks for coming on today and enlightening us again.
Okay, thank you guys, and happy new year and all those things.
Yes, Happy New Year. And that concludes another episode of the Tudors Dynasty podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you love the show and would like to show your support, consider becoming a patron over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Tudors Dynasty. Over there, you'll get commercial-free episodes, early access, and some patron exclusive content as well. If you would prefer to show your support in another way, head on over to my website, tudorsdynasty.com, and click on the shop to see some of the new merchandise that I have available. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.
The Tudors Dynasty Podcast.